Alrighty, we're going to go ahead and get started. I know that people will be coming in, but we're going to reward those who are here on time. Little fun fact, science says that meetings that start on time are 30% more effective than meetings that start late, so we're not going to start late. So I'm very excited that you guys are all here today. I have some panelists that are going to blow your mind, and I'm really excited to introduce them to you. One of them you've already met. Rodney Williams is the Director of Sustainability for Newark Public Schools in Newark, New Jersey, the largest school district in the state of New Jersey. And he and I have been biffles for about a decade now. I think we met in 2013. So it's been a joy to work with him. And you're going to get to meet Wayles Wilson. I met her in 2015 when she was with the Camden City School District, a senior district administrator for the Camden City School District. And she has also worked in the Philadelphia School District, and she will talk to you more about her urban school experience as a district administrator. But we have got some exciting stuff to share with you guys today. I'm going to go through a few things initially. And I know it's cold in here. I've seen some folks kind of do this. I have no control over it, and I'm sorry that if you're chilly, but if you want to stand up and do jumping jacks, I won't stop you, so whatever you need to do. I'm going to go through a few slides just to introduce my organization and how we came to work with Wayles and Rodney and several other school districts around the country, but I'm going to whip through them fast. Nobody's going to walk out of here with a PhD in what we do. I'm going to hit the wave tops for you, and then I'm going to turn it over to Rodney and Wayles. So my name is Jill Buck, and in 2002, I founded the Go Green Initiative. We are a nonprofit organization based in California, and I know we have some California folks in the room. Give me a woot woot. All right. My home team. And so we now work with school districts across the country to include our New Jersey districts, and we help school districts do a few things that I will get into in just a few moments. But we've been working with Newark, like I said, since 2013, Camden since 2015. We have established board policy and a budgetary process to ensure that most of our resources, our staffing, our bandwidth, everything that we raise money for, and P.S., we don't charge schools or school districts for anything that we do. Everything that we have, we give to school districts that are in environmental justice communities and or food desert communities. Simple reason, these are the school districts where the children are more exposed to the environmental toxins we're all trying to mitigate. And so we want to make sure that our resources are best spent with the children who need it the most. And so that is what has brought us into working with urban schools and loving every minute of it. So really quickly, I want to talk to you about what the Go Green Initiative is and what we care about. We are concerned about children being exposed to environmental toxins while they are at school. Many of these environmental toxins are not required to be monitored or regulated. I'm always puzzled that we've known that things like lead in drinking water are bad for children. It causes irreparable brain damage and organ damage as well, and yet there's still no federal regulation requiring school districts to test for lead in their drinking water. There's state regulations, and they are all over the map. Some are good, some are like California. I'll let you decide what you think I mean by that. I am not pleased. But we are concerned about the cognitive impact that these environmental toxins have for children when they're sitting in a classroom where they can't breathe, where they're eating food that isn't nutritious to their little bodies, when they're dehydrated, or they're drinking water that isn't clean. All of those, besides being impactful to their short and long-term health, can adversely impact their cognitive ability, their ability to learn. We need to get rid of those environmental toxins. And so the Go Green Initiative works with school districts to help them with clean drinking water, a clean food supply, and clean indoor air quality. And I saw Boston. Where's Boston? There you are, Catherine. She's my new hero. Oh my gosh, if you guys could have seen her indoor air quality, the work that Boston Public Schools are doing, that I'm still starry-eyed. So thank you for what you're doing. So that is one of our objectives with the Go Green Initiative. The other thing we recognize is that schools consume a lot of natural resources that we can either save for future generations or just gobble them right up. And we recognize that in as much as children need us today to get rid of those environmental toxins that are polluting their learning space, they're also going to need the natural resources that we save for them today. And schools consume a lot of natural resources. So this is why the Go Green initiative helps school districts conserve energy, conserve water, and reduce waste. But third, we recognize that a lot of students are not ready for the civic engagement that's going to be required of them in the age of climate change. Before we developed some of our student programs in the middle of the last decade, I met with high school students across the country who, you know, if I asked them, do you care about climate change? Absolutely, every single one of them did. And then I would ask them what they were going to do about it. They were like, we'll make a poster, we'll march, we'll protest, and there's a place for all of that, but they didn't realize what a substantive difference they could make in their local environmental public policy until we started some programming that actually helped them get involved with their local government. That could be school board, that could be city council, and actually work on some of these issues that are impacting their learning space. And so we have a high school program called Local Leaders of the 21st Century, where students work with their local public policy makers on things like clean water, clean indoor air quality, clean food supply, energy conservation, etc. And then we have paid summer internships as well. And so these are all things that we are out there funding. Once again, we do not charge school districts for our services, and so this is something that we really work hard to do, to provide these services to a wide breadth of school districts. So we're going to launch into the panel discussion. As I mentioned, I'm very honored to have my good friends and my teammates in this work, Rodney Williams and Wayles Wilson, and in just a moment I'm going to have them introduce themselves as I ask them a few questions. But I'm going to talk to you about, we've got 5 strategies that we're going to go through with you guys today. 5 strategies that we use to develop successful sustainability programs district-wide in urban school districts. And the first strategy is to develop district green teams. District green teams. So, I promised AFT we would be talking about union issues. You can see you're represented here. We asked who should be on a district green team. And some of these can vary, and we are totally fine with school districts making some decisions on their own, but this is what we recommend. The school business officer needs to be on the district green team. Often that is the person who chairs the district green team. The assistant superintendent of instruction, you may call that teaching and learning, you may call that education services, but basically the principal's boss, because we're going to talk about principals in a second. And so we ensure that the boss of the facilities and operations side and the boss of the education side are on the district green team. We ask the CNS, or Child Nutrition Services, School Nutrition, whatever you may call it, director to be on the district green team, human resources, facilities and MOT, purchasing, if possible, a rep from every school. Sometimes that can be unwieldy if you're in a very large district, like Newark has 68 schools, so we have representatives that are in groups of 5 to 10 schools. But then we want union leaders. And we'll talk about that in just a little bit, why that's so important. Student leaders, the head of custodial staff, and then I put in a third-party consultant. Often that's my organization in the districts that we work in, the Go Green Initiative, to help them with their sustainability planning. The roles and responsibilities of a district green team, this is something that my organization trains the district green teams in, to help advise the superintendent on what needs to be in the school district's sustainability plan, and when it's time to adopt board policy, and where to find good resources for board policy as it pertains to sustainability, climate action, what have you. The district green team is also the body that will manage the school site green teams, and we'll talk about school site green teams in just a moment, but the district green team sets district goals and then guides the school site green teams to adhere to those goals. And we have some tools that help the district green team manage and project manage what the school site green teams are doing. And finally, to centralize purchasing. I'll give you a for instance. When you're implementing a recycling program in a school district, if your strategy for getting bins is to play whack-a-mole with every school in your district and do it one at a time, you're going to pay a whole lot more than if you centralize the purchasing of your recycling bins, for all of the schools. And so we have some strategies to help school districts maximize their purchasing power through a district green team. So at this time, I am going to turn it over to my panelists. I want Rodney and Wayles to introduce themselves first, and then I've got a couple of questions for them around this notion of the district green team. So Rodney, introduce yourself if you would, please.
I'm Rodney.
Hi,
Good afternoon, I'm Rodney Williams. I'm the Director of Energy and Sustainability in Newark, New Jersey, the largest school district, as was mentioned, in New Jersey, but definitely not the largest in the country. I think New York had us beat. Some other ones in California had us beat, but still, as an urban district, we have our share of issues. But the nice thing, and what we're going to talk about, is that we're able to have these challenges, but we're able to find success, although we have these challenges. So I look forward to the discussion.
Thank you, Rodney. And Wayles, if you'll introduce yourself, that'd be great.
Hi, everyone. I'm so glad to see all of you here today. Wayles Wilson, as Jill said. I am a consultant with the Go Green Initiative now. I actually support a variety of different schools across the country, including some public charter schools in New Jersey and Philadelphia. But really, when I started working with the Go Green Initiative, I was Chief of Staff and Chief Operating Officer for Camden City School District. So working actually on the academic side of the house with implementing school operations, and then serving as the right hand to the superintendent.
Thank you, Wayles. It's great to have you both, and I think you're going to find that these two have a wealth of knowledge and experience in terms of what we're talking about today. So Rodney, let's start with you. Why did your district begin working with the Go Green Initiative to create a district green team?
Yeah. Okay, so
that was super loaded. Just
one reason is because my partnership with you, but we really needed that extra boost, that extra hand that the Go Green Initiative provided us with. And I'll start the time we met. We didn't have a green team. We wasn't even thinking about a green team. It was just a pocket of few champions that would champion recycling, champion energy, and sustainability. But the nice thing is with the Go Green Initiative, we were able to pull it all together, call it a team, and now we had some foundation where we can create this wonderful team that we're able to do some great things with. So we appreciate the Go Green Initiative to really help us. Although we had a lot of great ideals, but to put it all together to have a nice, impactful project that we're still working on to try to get through.
Yeah, we've had a lot of fun over the last decade, but our work is not even close to being done, not at all. And Rodney, one more question for you. As you mentioned, you led a lot of sustainability efforts in Newark Public Schools for many years before the district established a district green team. How has gathering senior district staff and representatives from each school and the unions impacted the district's ability to accomplish district-wide sustainability goals?
Okay, well, just have to understand that that wasn't the easiest of tasks. If you realize districts, especially during the time when we first started, it was about test scores. And here, this passionate guy, I had a lot of passion, was come talking about sustainability and being green. And the first thing they said is, how's that going to impact test scores? I'm a facilities guy, I don't know. I kind of lied. Oh, it's going to be great. But what happens is, what I realize is that to get them to move, you have to involve the students. And I learned that kind of by accident, because I wanted to get the message out, and we did a video, and I included some students. And yes, I was talking about renewable. What is renewable energy? I was talking about all that type of stuff. They said, well, we like the way that kid did that. And they so focused on, the students' involvement. Oh, you're involving the students. Yeah. So with doing that, now I got the attention of the board. I got the attention of the superintendent. And then he put me, or at the time it was she put me in contact with the assistant supes and the different curriculum leaders. And from there we took off. But I tell you, getting the students involved was the most important thing that I was able to do to keep this program before our senior leaders. Because I tell you one thing, I don't care how much knowledge they have, we can do nothing in a school district without enriching the students and involving them. So once we involve the students, then all these wonderful ideals can take place.
That's great insight. Thank you, Rodney. Wayles, I'm going to ask you for Camden. How was it decided who would be on the District Green Team, and why are these individuals so vital in making a District Green Team function?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of what you just shared on the last two slides, was something I was thinking a lot about, because the way that translated for us in Camden was that we really wanted to have the visionaries, the decision makers, the strategic planners on our green team. But one thing that Rodney just said that really got me thinking was, it was important for us to make our sustainability priorities part of what we were already doing. And so when you just talked about test scores and academic outcomes, I'll say, I had to think about, okay, how do I motivate everybody to take on the sustainability work and make it part of what they already cared about and what they were already working on? So by thinking about the head of facilities, the head of operations, the head of food services, how do I translate getting them on this team to what they were already trying to accomplish? And academics, they wanted to increase academic outcomes for kids. So guess what? If we can convince them that by being on the green team and supporting indoor air quality or food quality was actually going to change academic performance, there was the hook. And I don't know if you guys know Rodney, he knows everybody from what I can tell, but you also need those movers and shakers. You need people on your green team at the district level who are not only going to be able to set the vision, but they're also going to invest. They're going to be champions. They're going to get others on board to really take it seriously and make things happen. So I think people like Rodney who are very passionate is also an ingredient that we had. Some of the other people were the assistant to the superintendent. I knew that she was going to chase things down and if we needed a policy signed or presented to the board, she was so excited about the green team's work. She was a critical part of the team, as was the facilities managers. When we had a great idea and we were proposing policies and procedures on the district green team, by having the facilities managers part of it, they were able to quickly hit the ground running with training, investing the union, because they had a really great relationship. And so it was sort of connecting what we were doing for sustainability work with their day-to-day.
And speaking of unions, I can tell you this, and I've worked with a lot of school districts, and some of them opt not to put their union leaders on their district green team, and they move slower. And they get less done every school year than the district green teams that welcome their union leaders in. There's an efficiency and there's a collaboration that happens when district green teams include their unions. Wayles?
Yeah, there's one thing I did want to add. Looking at the slide and thinking about what worked really well for us in Camden, we sort of had two parts to our district green team. We had sort of the cabinet level folks, and then we had these committees where I found it so much more effective for us to have our big meetings periodically, but then we had small group committees so we could dig deeper into food services, for example. And then that's how we really got the representatives from each school more involved. We'll talk about the school site green teams in a moment, but we were able to then have folks who were passionate about a particular area really committed to that and do what we called, committee work. So we really bridged that gap between, policy and vision, and how are we going to actually do this in the school, and what are the ingredients, and who are the people that are going to help us make that happen.
Perfect.
Yeah, if I can just add
go right ahead.
to the union portion. I mean, initially, I wasn't the I wasn't really thrilled about including the unions.
Thank you for your candor, Rodney.
I mean, it's just that. Sorry. But what I've learned is that they could be your biggest critic and also be your biggest advocate.
That's right.
And when it's right, there's nothing stopping them.
Yeah.
And now then they will get to their members. So you know, I had kind of a slanted view, but you know, I have changed. and you know, just including the union members and making sure that they know that they're included. Not okay by it just so happened that a union member is here, but making sure that they know they are a part goes a long way. So I'm here to admit that definitely including union members in that group is probably the best course of action to keep things moving.
I grew up as a child of a union member, not education, but coal miner. My dad was a coal miner his entire career, and so I grew up inherently understanding the value of labor unions. I mean, I have straight teeth because, you know, one time my dad's unions went on strike to get orthodontia in the contract. So for me, it kind of goes to the core of what you hear a lot in the fair trade movement. Nothing about us without us. And there's no way to develop a district sustainability plan that won't involve union members, whether it's teachers, custodians, classified staff. And so involving them in the decision-making group is a way of honoring how very important they are in the conversations around the planning and the decisions. And so, anyway, that's just my own 2 cents, but that's why the Go Green initiative is so on board with involving union folks. I want to get now to the sustainability plan. This is our second key strategy. In helping the district green team, before we roll things out to school sites, developing a sustainability plan that is comprehensive. And there are things that can be added to a sustainability plan. You don't have to wait around until you've got the perfect plan to get started. But one of the things that the Go Green Initiative does when we work with the District Green Team is we have a variety of tools, and P.S. you will get a QR code at the end with these slides, and there are some embedded links in this slide that show you some templates of our tools for tracking the progress of a project timeline year over year. When the district sustainability plan is put into a project timeline and we track it, you'll see our template and our tools for how we help the district green team stay on track. Wayles, I'm going to go to you and I'm going to ask you, what is a sustainability plan and why should districts spend time creating one?
I love a plan. So for us, I wish ours looked like that back then. But really what we had to do was we needed to narrow focus. I mean, I've heard this topic kind of come up a lot this week, but we were all over the place and we really needed to prioritize and really start with the district's strategic plan and think about what were we already working on and what are our needs and our priorities. And so we really did sort of like a quick SWOT analysis, but really thought about a needs assessment for what we were trying to accomplish, and then what about that could we be thinking about as a priority for sustainability. You know, identifying what are the goals we're trying to accomplish and be thoughtful about the timeline of when we're trying to meet those goals, but then really digging deep into what is our action plan, like how are we going to get there and what does that implementation plan look like so that we can hold each other accountable to these next steps that we're going to have to take together, because there are so many people that were involved. We had to be really thoughtful about what that looked like. And so Jill, you had mentioned earlier, you know, I'm all about the academic side. I mean, when I started in supporting school operations from the academic team, which is a very unique perspective, it really helped me with this work because I said, I know we're trying to improve academic excellence in every child. We now know that indoor air quality and water quality and food quality is a thing we can do today to make change for the health and cognitive ability for our students. So how can we prioritize those strategies first and foremost? We're still not there. You know, there's still a lot of work to do while bringing along the students, but we wanted to make sure that we are making the space for those big rocks through our strategic plan and making sure that, you know, we were really focusing on what mattered most.
I love that because, as Rodney mentioned, you know, he was doing a lot of work in Newark. There were a lot of things going on before the Go Green initiative ever came on the scene, but it was, you know, a champion for this and a champion for that in the district. And so bringing it all together was really helpful, and it helped the district gain traction across more schools and impact more students when they did that. And so Rodney, I'd love for you to tell us about the sustainability planning in the Newark public school system, and what did you strive to achieve and what priorities did you set? I mean, there's so many things that you can do under sustainability. How did you set your priorities, and talk to us about that?
Well, part of the superintendent's 10-year strategy included sustainability. And he might have been talking about something else, but I jumped all over it. And with that understanding districts and how they function, everything is a policy. If you're going to do something, there has to be a policy. So we adopted the sustainability policy, and then we adopted with Go Green Initiative assistance purchasing policies, and tie that all into how we're going to reach these goals. And it was supposed to be 2020, but now it's 2030 for the district. So I think it's 1.4. Hope this nobody's spying and tell them I got the number wrong. But the sustainability policy is right there in the superintendent's plan for the district. So that made it a little bit easier. So now we were able to talk about the things that we can add to this sustainability throughout the district. But one of the things that we wanted to make sure is, it's nice to have, you know, all these sexy words about sustainability, and you get before people, you start talking about, oh yeah, we're doing this, we're doing that, critical thinking, 21st century learning and all that type of stuff. That's good, but it doesn't work. So one of the things that we want to make sure that we reduce funding. That's the sustainability. We're going green. That means we're going to save money. Okay. But the other part of that is we want to educate. What is sustainability? How does it impact our students? But then the big part of sustainability, the one thing that's near and dear to my heart, is once we save money, once we educate, how can we employ these students and bring them into this circle of sustainability? Because we can talk about widgets all the time. We can talk about, hey, this is the new, this is the best thing, and you do it, you retire, it's gone. But so if we can educate the students, if we can show them, listen, this is what I have, but I'm sure as you go along, you're gonna make it better. So my challenge to you is to make it better. So part of that sustainability planning is not only just to provide a policy, not only provide some keywords, some understanding, but find a way to educate these students with internships, opportunity for scholarships, college, or whatever it takes to keep them in this loop so that we can keep this whole thought process moving forward and better.
I want to pick up what you said, money, and I remembered, like, I'm going to be real for a minute, academic outcomes. We were like, how can we save money? And so for us, the reason why we started sustainability planning was because we were about to get fined $3,000 a day per school for not recycling. And that was really the impetus of like, we don't have that money. Our kids need the money more than the government's going to need to by fining us. So let's figure this out. And then it became like, oh, okay, we avoided that and that was fun. We started doing things like energy savings improvement plans. We're like, how can we do some basic improvements that are going to pay for the bigger things we knew we already wanted to do, but how can we, you know, work smarter, not harder? And also just things like with ESSER funds. How can we use that funding to push our facilities, maybe for the first time, with federal dollars and really make change in some of these indoor environmental quality issues? And to convince people not to invest that money in a teacher that they were going to have to let go in 3 years when the funding dries up, but really focus on some of our sustainability initiatives.
Absolutely. Thank you, Wayles. Thanks, Rodney. Those are great insights. So our third strategy that we're going to be talking about is school site green teams. So once the district green team is established, and they've established their sustainability plan, their goals, and they've set, some milestones, some time-bound goals around their sustainability plan, then it's time to bring on board school site green teams. Now, this is the composition that the Go Green Initiative recommends, that the green teams at each school have at least one administrator, one teacher, one student, and one custodian. Leave any one of those perspectives out, and it's a recipe for trouble. Again, I'll go back to recycling, because I remember, with Camden, when we were setting up the recycling systems on campus, if we had only had the teachers and students' ideas about what should be happening in the cafeteria area, for instance, we would have missed out on some real opportunities to streamline that system, because we were missing the custodial perspective. Similarly, I've seen schools try to completely adultify this and leave out the students, and then the system makes no sense to the students. So we really worked hard to help the school site green teams ensure that they are properly composed. And then the Go Green Initiative does a lot of training for the school site green teams in the districts where we work. Like last year, we're going to talk about this in a minute, when Newark was going for Sustainable Jersey for School certification, I did a series of training sessions and then recorded them for school site green teams that couldn't be there, and put them up online so that they were trained in what to do for that particular district sustainability goal. And so this is part of the service that we provide, but the roles and responsibilities that we ask the green team to fulfill at a school site is to assess their own campus needs, as it pertains to the district's goals. So if the district's goal is to lower energy use through behavior modification, we're going to train the school site green teams in what that means, and then they're going to assess their own campus to determine what they need in order to fulfill those goals. We ask the school site green teams to coordinate with and report to the district green team on the things that they are doing well, the things that are causing them difficulty, and a lot of times there's going to be an individual or a team of individuals on the district green team that are like, no problem, we'll solve that in 24 hours. This communication back and forth between the district green team and the school site green teams is vital. If there's radio silence on either side of that communication bridge, oftentimes the system is breaking down. And so we do a lot of things to promote conversations between those two entities. And finally, after we train, or if it's in a district where we're not doing tier 1 service, but after the school site green team has been trained maybe by the district green team, then we ask them to train the rest of their campus. So they're the ones who will be training faculty, staff, and students on what the school district is asking each school site to perform in terms of sustainability goals. So Wayles, I'm going to go to you first on this one. The GGI has helped create multiple school site green teams in different districts. What role do you think these teams play, and how would you describe a successful school site green team?
So I mean, the word champion keeps coming back to my mind. They're really championing whatever the district has prioritized at their school site, customizing it for their school context, and hitting the ground running. I'm thinking of a couple examples. I love the chart that you had of who needed to be involved. Those are the really key players because of a visionary standpoint. They're really bringing everyone along in their school community, whether it's the principal saying, yes, this matters, we're going to make time for it, to those passionate teachers and operations staff. But then those students really become very critical. I know Rodney had talked about this a few minutes ago. One of the things that we saw that's so important with our recycling initiatives was having the students really lead the cafeteria waste stations, where they were doing peer-to-peer training at lunch, and like the current hall monitors from my youth became like these cafeteria advocates, and our students with disabilities classes actually really got involved and were really fantastic in leading some of the programming we did. And had they not been involved in the school site green team, I don't think we would have seen the change. And because we had this sort of cross collaboration between the schools, I don't know if you guys know this, but school staff were trained to be data driven, and they're very competitive. And so we started to have competitions about like who had the best recycling program, because the school site green teams were self-reporting out and able to provide data assessments of how they were doing. And it was a constant competition because they were really excited about the work that they were implementing at the school level, and we were able to kind of celebrate what that progress looked like at each school. And so those are just a couple examples I've been thinking about.
There's another question I want to ask you, Wayles, but I'm going to move us along just a little bit. In the interest of time, and Rodney, I'm going to go to you and ask you to talk about how school site green teams have assisted the district in some of the district's sustainability goals.
All right, so as well as brought up competition. The one thing that we were able to see is that when those individual schools do great things, we have a superintendent that really pumps them up. And you know, he tells the story and he just make a real fuss over the work that they're doing. So the other schools like, well, you know, we could have done the same thing. Well, go ahead. So each school, because of the competitive nature, they try to do more things as far as sustainability. But the nice program that at least New Jersey has, I don't know how it is in any other place, there's Sustainable Jersey for Schools, which it has many different criteria where you can attain bronze certification, silver certification. And it was nice where we start off with 1 or 2 schools were able to receive bronze, and then the entire district, and then we had another school that said, you know what, I'm gonna do a little better. So they went to silver. So now everybody said, how can I go silver? So of course the First Avenue School, which was a school, they stood tall and said, well, you can follow us. and you know, that created that level of competition. So you know, it made my job kind of easier, where I didn't have to, you know, reinvent the wheel. I can look at what the other school did and help them with other assistants duplicate what the other school did. But these programs, the competition, the repetition, and the constantly bringing to their attention some of the sustainable things that are out there allows these individual green teams to achieve goals. Now the other thing which is nice is that once you are certified, grants become available for you. And individual schools love grants. They love to do different things, have that money coming in specifically for them, and that's an incentive for them to keep sustainability and the green team relevant and moving forward and excited.
Yeah, and I would say that the flip side of the coin of that friendly competition between school site green teams is also peer coaching. We were seeing principals call Principal Blanco from First Avenue School when they got silver, saying, how did you do this? And teachers talking to each other amongst, you know, themselves about that. I want to get to our 4th strategy, and then we're going to whip through to our 5th strategy, and then we'll get to questions at the end. So benchmarking and tracking consumption data is a big part of our strategies for success. I mean, I will admit, I used to be an officer in the United States Navy, so if you can't measure it, it doesn't exist. So, and don't chit-chat, no side talk, we'll do push-ups until I'm tired. Just kidding, that was another life ago. But we really do feel like it's important, partly because of what you discussed in the Boston indoor air quality session, to be transparent. It's the so what of it all. We're doing all this sustainability stuff. Well, so what? What did we achieve? This is how you can answer that question. So we encourage our schools, and we actually help them get up to date if they don't already have Energy Star Portfolio Manager accounts. We can track water, energy, and waste on the Energy Star Portfolio Manager. It's free, and it's one place where you can put in your goals, you can benchmark and track your consumption data for all 3 of those streams for free. And then it gives you reports that are incredible. It gives you reports on your cost, your energy use intensity, your greenhouse gas emissions. And so you can actually report out to your constituents and your stakeholder groups, well, we did these things, and as a result, here's how much money we saved. This is how much less energy, water, or waste we produced or consumed. And this is our impact on climate change. We brought our greenhouse gas emissions down. So this is the tool that we use. And so, Rodney, I want to go to you. The GGI trains schools and districts on Energy Star Portfolio Manager to help track energy, water, and waste in their schools. How have you found this platform useful, and how could other districts benefit from using a database like Portfolio Manager?
Well, this platform is very useful. Matter of fact, we started doing Energy Star prior to really getting into energy savings or any energy savings program, and we found it such a wonderful tool. One great thing is we were able to see individual schools, how they're doing. And the nice thing, you're able to be rated based upon your energy saving. Yeah, you save energy, but how does it compare to other schools similar throughout the whole platform? And that worked out pretty well, because you're able to say, well, maybe if I can tweak it here, I can tweak it there. Of course, they give you a nice plaque if you do a great job. But the nice thing about it is that it's a place where you can have that necessary data. Now, anytime you're going for any type of energy savings improvement program or any type of program, rebates or something that requires data, this is the platform that you're able to use, and it's recognized where they can actually see how your building is performing. And in fact, we are involved in a $100 million energy savings program, which, by the way, a little plug for Johnson Control as our ESCO. They've been helping us out.
Wave to the crowd. Right there.
But because of that, they were able to see the value of actually going forth the effort to help us with our energy saving program. Sustainable Jersey. I mentioned that all of our schools are bronze certified, and we have 3 that's silver certified. But we use this platform to quantify: are we really saving energy? Is that building really going? So it's a nice platform where the standards, the industry can look and really quantify the work that you're doing within these buildings when it comes to energy savings.
Thanks, Rodney. And Wayles, for you, for a district, what value does benchmarking and tracking waste consumption, or you can substitute that with energy or water, and especially when comparing multiple schools and buildings, what's the value to a district?
Yeah, so I'll touch on 2 different things really quickly. So for us, one of the big things that came out and really inspired our schools when we were doing waste audits, one small example of just tracking the data, it was actually not even the numbers. It was, we within 5 minutes looked at the waste and we're like, there's so much liquid waste. This is terrible for our staff, let alone whatever's happening in our waste hauler. So just being able to quickly see that data and be able to take action on it right away, and custodians to be able to say to us, well, just by getting the liquid dumped at the cafeteria waste stations instead of in the trash changed my life. I'm no longer covered in chocolate milk. That was one way where we were able to really get the custodians bought into what we were trying to do. And so to be able to track the waste from a number standpoint can also be really helpful. For energy, which I wanted to talk about because this is the Camden, some of the schools' energy data from Camden. One of the things that sort of excited us about being able to use it was, well, one, GGI, the Go Green initiative in your work, Jill, we were just paying our utility bills. And I mean, I'm ashamed to even just be I think we were just sort of passing the paperwork, and being able to really get trained from your organization to say, no, let's stop and analyze what this utility bill is even for, and which school and which meter, and are you guys even still owning that school building that they're billing you for? So being able to just benchmark it and really stop and think about what our usage was step 1. And then to go back post-pandemic and compare what our energy usage was to that benchmark, the district dropped energy usage to 10%. They actually got an award from Sustainable Jerseys for Schools, but I think Newark had gotten a few years prior. Because not only were they reducing energy costs and direct money in their pocket, they also were able to make decisions about what schools they were going to, they needed to have some school closures because of population shifts in the district, but really thinking about what are our most efficient and healthy buildings so that we're going to be putting kids in the right schools. And what happened was energy costs dropped just by being able to make some really difficult decisions at the strategic level. Mm-hmm. And to Rodney's point, being able to compare how your school, with the number of kids and the number of grades, to other peers or across our campuses was really helpful data, because then we could say, what the heck is happening at that campus? Yeah. They're the same size as that one, yet their bills are out of control. And being able to prioritize, where do we do some type of intervention? Is it new motion detectors? Is it even just training for staff and really just kind of going back to the competition of what can we do to change these numbers?
Well, and I love being able to tell a school district they're getting ripped off because on their utility bills, so that we can help them recoup that money, ensure that doesn't happen anymore. So the fastidiousness that we have around helping them really analyze their utility data is a big part of the service that we provide. So our fifth strategy, and we're going to whip through this one so that we can get to some questions from you guys, is talking about certification and awards and the value that has for school districts. And as we've mentioned, and Rodney got an award today, 100% of schools in both Newark and Camden have been certified with the Sustainable Jersey for Schools program. And I cannot emphasize to you enough, yes. This is, and this is probably not something that Rodney or Wayles would say out loud, so I'm going to say it because that's just how I roll. But Sustainable Jersey for Schools has a map on their website that shows all of the certified schools in the state. And I'm just going to let you guess. What do you think that map looked like before Camden and Newark did what they did? Yeah, it was concentric circles of the school districts outside of low-income urban districts. And when Camden and Newark planted their flag in the ground and said, not only are we going to do this with a couple of schools, we're going to do it with all of our schools. So how about that? That changed the viewpoint of a lot of folks in the state, and they felt like, oh my gosh, this isn't just affluent suburban thing. This is something for all kids, all school districts, and they really set that example. So, Rodney, I'm going to talk to you first. In 2022, every school in Newark and Camden earned bronze certification. You guys had some silvers as well. Talk to us about how that was possible and what you and your team did to make that happen. Because I will also say this is a very paperwork intensive, rigorous program. So how did you do it?
All right. Truth. So the criterias for the certification, I was part of the committee that set it all up.
He knows that. This is how you do it.
It was an inside job.
I don't believe it. I know for a fact that is not what led to your success.
The point I'm making is, it's been existing for a long period of time, and we did this in 2019, 2020, is because the effort, wow.
It was a lot.
When I saw the paperwork, I said, I ain't doing this. But I valued it. I didn't value the paperwork. But it's nice when you go from trying to do it yourself to getting people to assist and getting the right people. And I tell you, that's the partnership with Go Green Initiative. When they say they're going to take all that paperwork and they're going to help me put together, I'm like, sold. But once you get started, you start realizing all the things, all the data that you have. And although it's a wonderful award, but when you step back and see your accomplishment, that's actually the reward. because you're able to see that you put in policies, you got it written down, you can prove it because they want you to prove it. Or you have all these things in place and it enriches the students, enriches the environment. There was one area that we focused on a whole lot and we had to quantify. And I tell you, if it wasn't for Tracy, the Tools for School program, they said, do you have Tools for School? Yes, I do. We always had that. We pulled that over here, and that was part of certification. So it was a tough thing. But I tell you, once you have like I said, the data, you have all this information, you can put it all together, and now you were able to accomplish something that you think you could. I mean, it's always when you look at the mountain, you're like, I'll never climb that. But when you start one step at a time, and before you know it, you reach the top. You look down, you're like, I can't believe I did that. So yes, I was part of the committee that set it all up, and I pushed back on it. But I tell you, it was rewarding just moving forward and submitting the application. And not only that, it was a way to encourage everyone else because the buzz is there. When the entire district received bronze certification, and the thing about bronze, that was mainly your policies. That was mainly things that was centralized. And each school got the plaque. They thought they did something. Like, oh, but you know, you want silver, you really have to do something. So it was a great accomplishment for the school district. And more truth, when I heard that Camden thinking about all their schools, I said, oh heck no, Newark going to do it first. And you know, friendly competition. But like I said, you know, the paperwork may seem like it's a lot, but if you move forward, you'll find the reward right there.
Thank you, Rodney. And last question from me, and then we'll open it up. Wayles, what was the value of going through this certification process for Camden?
To be the first urban district in New Jersey. We got one school that year, but for us, actually, what happened was, like, once we got through the fine possibility with recycling, we were overwhelmed by sustainability. I mean, like, what does the word even mean? Was sort of like the problem we were having. And so Jill presented this opportunity to us and said, but comes a checklist approach. Like, let's figure out what it's going to take to get the points based on what you're already doing. We just have to package it. And so, to be honest, the Go Green initiative was, without that extra capacity, I don't think, to Rodney's point, we would have been able to submit the paperwork, because it is a lot, but it just takes organization. And so we really appreciated the checklist approach so that we could feel accomplished and get started. And then the competition started, and now every school in the district is certified. And to Rodney's point, we were able to come up with ways with our food services team, in particular, our facilities team, how can we do so many things at the central office level so that the burden's not on the school, but we inspire them to then take it to the next step. But as Rodney alluded to earlier in today's conversation, one of the big benefits that came out of it was not just the PR moment, which I don't know that really did much for us, but it was the financial incentives that came with it that we were sort of surprised by. We were able to get individual grants for the school. We actually got a big grant through SJS for what actually paid for our ESIP, for us to be able to do this energy savings improvement plan by having to pay for the engineer. So, you know, the money speaks for our district in particular, but then we had the measurable outcomes that we could then report out and say we are making progress, and this is how it connected to our big strategic plan. So.
Love it. Thank you so much. I'm going to put this up so you guys can get a hold of the slides if you want to scan that QR code, but let's take some questions from you all. Yes?
So I have a question in regards to just getting started with your district. Did either one of you find any sort of resistance to getting this team together? How did you overcome that? And did you get resistance to just the fact that you're changing things and adding more work to loads. So how did you battle that?
Well, resistance, yes, because at the time it was something new, and why are we moving away from tradition? And that's why I said student engagement. If it wasn't for the fact that adding the students, making that part of what we're doing, moving together with student enrichment, who's going to tell you no? We can't do that. Well, you're saying the students can't do that, so it kind of forced their hand a little bit, but the world changed. And today things are different. Everybody looking at sustainability. We're looking at jobs. There are more sustainable jobs. How do we get our students ready for that? Well, we have to train them. We have to teach them. So, the world did shift, but there's a bunch of folks was constantly pushing sustainability, green, recycling. This conference, I remember when we first started, it was a bunch of us in a room in Washington, D.C., and it was nice to be in that room because I felt like I was an outsider at my job, but I'm amongst people that feel the same way, and then it grew. So it took a little bit of time, but I think now it's the soil is a little bit more ripe for growth.
I would like to jump in and just say, for us, I absolutely met resistance when we were starting to do this because people, in a school, especially in urban school, there's not a shortage of things to do. But I have a poker chip analogy that I'm like, how can I collect good favors before I ask you to do the hard thing? And so, a specific example, the director of food services at Camden, Arlethea Brown, is one of my favorite people. And she told me even recently, she's like, when you started talking about this green stuff, I thought you were absolutely insane. But she's like, you created it in a space and you brought me along to why it mattered. I talked about the kids and I talked about, we talked about nutrition, and then I framed it to her of like, well, what are you trying to do with your food services team? And I said, great, let's work on it together. And she didn't realize what she was doing could be considered sustainable. And so we started to work together, and she then got food court members that were part of our green team, and they were committed, and they were doing breakfast after the bell programs. So I'm like, you're already passionate about getting food to kids. That is a part of this program, and we can just capture what you're doing. I'll do the hard work, you tell me the story. And that really brought her along. And that's just one small example, but we thought about how do we take what we're already doing and just turn it up a notch so that we can start to package it together and really think of it as a cohesive plan.
Thank you, Wayles. Thanks, Rodney. I saw you with the pink sweater on and then the blue shirt right next to you. Yes, go right ahead.
Yes, I see you're doing a lot of measuring and looking at outcomes, and I'm just curious, have y'all seen any health or performance outcomes with what you've done either with your counties or your districts or within your work?
I'll take that one for you. We had a school district that was very energy efficient, and their Energy Star portfolio manager numbers showed that they were eligible to be Energy Star certified. And so in order to do that, we had to bring a professional engineer in to do some indoor air quality monitoring, because you can't be so energy efficient that you're suffocating your children. Turns out they were. And so when the monitor started beeping and going off in a third grade classroom, and we were seeing kids like, I can't stay awake, and the teacher was like, come sit up at my desk, and we were seeing all the visible signs of high CO2 levels, and we looked at what the CO2 levels were. I immediately got on the phone, with the superintendent, and I asked him to please meet with me and with the assistant superintendent of teaching and learning, and I said, look at these numbers, and it was like, no idea what that means. One of the things you got to understand is that administrators are not being taught this. There's really not a lot of programs, if any, when you're getting your master's in education, your doctorate, that's teaching you about the impact on student health and wellness that these issues have: indoor air quality, food quality, water quality. And so we've had to do a lot of professional development for senior district administrators who've never been trained in this. And so that was one example where immediately, once I explained what these high CO2 levels meant, they put in indoor air quality monitors, and now they're tracking that data. And absolutely, teachers and students will say, what a difference. we can breathe, you know, and we are not distracted by, you know, these things that were in our indoor air quality. So that's one small example. We've seen many, but that was kind of a backdoor way of getting into indoor air quality.
Can I just add on?
Yes, Tracy, stand up. Tracy's with the EPA and is the reason we have tools for schools, everybody. So
You're
give it up.
the reason we have tools for schools. Okay, because honestly, government is not smart enough to have figured out. We went to the Rodneys of the world. We were able to figure out tools for schools, I'm honest with you. But, you know, this is so important, and I'm so glad that Kara brought up the question, because, you know, my question was about, you know, what you learned about what your school districts actually value. Because when you talk about, you know, the money, yes, they value the money because that's all they know to value, and that's the only way that they know to create a value proposition around this work. And as long as we're talking cost and savings, and we don't start talking value and values, we're never going to get there. And so we have all of these school districts who talk about, we value education for every kid, and we value the health of our students, and then they suffocate them, right? And it's not like people are coming in saying, how can I screw up the indoor air quality? How can I screw up the health every day? They just aren't educated about it.
Yep.
And if we're not talking the value of health, and if we're not talking the value of academic performance, then it's always going to be skewed to, am I saving money? Yep. And if I'm not saving money, then I'm not going to do it. But there's value in your values.
Yeah.
And bringing them back to that and recognizing that connection. And we've actually got, we got an app for that. We actually have. We actually have help in helping you develop your value proposition that is three-pronged on our site. So go there and let's just help get people understanding the importance of health, academic performance, and physical performance and savings. They all go together, right? The triple bottom line.
That's right, and thank you, Tracy, and thank you for Tools for Schools. I mean, I don't recommend any other resource, than Tools for Schools. It's been revised and revamped and improved over the years, and it's just a tremendous place to jump off. I want to go to Mr. the blue shirt.
So I have a question. You were talking about waste management, and one area that we're having this issue in our school district has to do with monitoring waste output. So we don't know, we can measure how many times dumpsters are tipped, but the municipality is not measuring how much waste's coming out of there. We're not measuring what's the weight going in there. We don't even measure the volume. We don't know if they're tipping full dumpsters. Have you figured out a secret to this that we can steal?
Yes. I'm going to take that one because we're not really deploying that in either Newark or Camden, but we have deployed this in some other West Coast school districts where SB 1383 in California is a big one. So we have developed an app that goes right into Energy Star Portfolio Manager, and part of the school site green teams where we're doing this kind of work, one of their team duties is to look in, we get their waste hauling schedule, and we develop their schedule in the app, and they check the dumpsters the day before the pickup comes. They register if it's 25, 50, 75, 100% full in the app, and it populates the waste data in Energy Star Portfolio Manager. So like the first month that we rolled this out, there was an elementary school that we were immediately able to cut service because they weren't using all of their capacity, and we saved them $300 a month. And so that is something, we haven't done it yet in New Jersey, but we have been piloting that app in California. So, all right, I know I saw some hands. I'm going to go to you, sir, and then you, sir.
So your CO2 story actually inspired this question. So I work in a Los Angeles public school. She and I are both AP Environmental Science teachers, and she's a union rep within our district, Go Union. But also, so we have, as many urban schools have, with newly updated class sizes, we've adopted portable classrooms, or the bungalows as we call them. Many of them are carpeted, which obviously means a tremendous amount of indoor air pollutants. So my question to you is this: you had expressed issues with how to present this air pollution data to your school superintendents. My question is, like, in this situation, like there's mold that's accumulated within these carpets, it's affecting the teacher's health, etc. What would you suggest to be like a solid game plan of how to present this information in a way that either is or isn't confrontational, but like in a way that like conveys the severity of the situation?
Well, first of all, get your data straight. If you don't have good data, then it's anecdotal. Okay, like I feel like this isn't healthy air. There are monitors that you can get on Amazon for less than $100 that will help you monitor what's actually in your indoor air quality. So get your data straight. And get your facts straight. I mean, there are plenty of studies. You can email me, jillbuck@gogreeninitiative.org, and I can send you the studies so that you can reference to say, these are our data points, this is what it means, this is what could be happening, hence liability. Now, I tend to not be afraid of confrontation. However, sometimes it can be ill-advised to go public with this first. Sometimes, if you give the school district administration a chance to do the right thing behind closed doors and maybe a union confer, then problem solved and everybody's happy. But if that doesn't happen, then there are plenty of ways to, everybody gets 3 minutes at a school board meeting, right?
Yeah.
If I had a nickel for every time we deployed that strategy, even with students as well, I wouldn't have to fundraise for the Go Green Initiative anymore. So,
Can I add something?
Go ahead.
Yep.
No,
I was just gonna say, I know I would want, as the environmental division at BPS, I would want to be able to help you with that as a teacher. And so I don't know what LA has, but if there's an environmental division there and their facility staff, you should be able to report and say, I have a concern, I think there may be mold in this carpet. And then either they themselves or their third-party contractor would come out and inspect it and respond and take action. And that's a legitimate, non-controversial, but fast action way of serving you as a teacher. That's all I would.
I was going to say the same thing, but keep in mind those TCUs, temporary class units. They're supposed to be temporary, but they end up being permanent. And I'm afraid that and they're probably afraid that as soon as they pull the carpet, the whole thing probably fall apart.
All right, Malik, and then Craig, and then if anybody wants to stay, we'll stay. I don't think there's anybody coming in after us. If you want a book, you can get a book. But let's just keep going, Malik.
Rodney and forget something. Sorry.
Wayles. Yep.
With the idea of being green in the schools, at any point are plants implemented into the indoor space for the children? We talk about wellness, we talk about sustainability. I was here earlier for a food garden, a food forest, At what point do we integrate the technologies and the ideas into the schools to have it be all encompassing and, not just a structure where it's about federal funding and watts per unit and all this stuff that we do, and it's just like the kids like it, they get to play with some plants, it's green, is that implemented into anything that you want to do as far as the school?
It'd be tricky. Sometimes with plants and with some type of vegetation, there could be allergens that comes from it, and now we have an air quality issue. Granted, it is nice on one side, but the liability side can create another problem. That's why you find most classrooms don't have the plants.
There's nothing wrong with it, and it's not a bad idea. NASA did studies on how certain plants can improve indoor air quality. But if that's your first move, instead of removing VOCs, high CO2 levels, carbon monoxide levels, you're going to have a whole lot of plants to really, absolutely.
Just if I can add, one thing that we did in Camden was we actually, the food corps members, we had went to every school and had hydroponic garden kits that they actually were growing food in the classrooms, and the students were being taught about nutritious food. They had the plants, so we sort of used that as a strategy to almost hit a couple boxes, and it did brighten those classrooms, and they were able to learn a lot about the natural light and those other sustainability education strategies.
And it was controlled.
Right.
Maintained.
Yeah.
Are you talking about the tower garden?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
we love tower gardens, actually.
I have lettuce grow in my office.
Rodney is going to be entertaining one of my staff members from LA this week. Actually, Friday, you guys have a meeting. And we put in tower gardens at 2 of the high schools in Newark And that has been outrageously successful. But not necessarily to address indoor air quality, but to address some of the other esoteric needs of the students, to your point. Craig?
Yeah, just a quick comment on the TCUs. I mean, so Craig Schiller at CHIPS, we verify schools, and I can't tell you the number of schools where we now have folks saying, oh, we're going to permanently install these TCUs now. Like, you know, the contradiction that you're, like, come on. But so my question, going back to the balance between energy efficiency and indoor air quality, and I just want to highlight this, like every other sector has a range of EUIs, data centers, fast food, and the range of EUIs are based on the fundamental need, right? Fast food has a higher EUI range because, well, we need fryers. Right, the EUI for schools should be higher because of the students and the balance of the students. So I think that's an essential question we really need to get universally accepted is what is that air change rate and filtration rate? That should be the minimum that we have to reach the efficiency, and we should all be okay. The efficiency should be higher in schools for the students. So my question here, Jill, is there's so many studies that have come out on indoor air quality and so many studies on indoor air quality in COVID, and I want to bring it back to the students and humanize this, right? Because if the studies say one thing, that should be in balance or in addition to stories of students getting sick. If they're not getting sick or they're not being sleepy or they're not having a lifetime, then we shouldn't worry about it and we should stop studying it. If we're studying that shows there's an effect, we should also show the effect on the students. And I don't know how
well,
you...
that's what we have. I have a kind of a resource library of studies that show the impact on children. That's our whole focus.
But how do we tell that story to the districts to, and balance like, hey, these students are getting sick, so to make it meaningful and now.
Well, and part of the way that we've been able to do that too is, school districts funding is often tied to average daily attendance. And if you've never been in a second grade classroom where the teacher's trying to talk and you hear and all these kids have asthma. And this is why in urban school districts that's much more likely to happen. The prevalence of asthma is much greater because these kids are inundated with a lot more air pollution just because of their zip code, which don't get me started. I mean, that's a whole nother injustice. But because of that, they bring that it comes into their indoor air quality, and their absenteeism is a very real part of the school district's budget. And so that's often one way to weave that story in is to say, what's your absentee rate due to asthma? And I don't know if you guys want to...
No, ditto. Okay.
Well, we are kind of over time, but I want to thank you all for being here and thank Rodney and Wayles. If you would like one of Wayles' books, Environmental Equity, please come on up. But thank you all so much for
the textbook on all of this. Train your district.